On 30th September 1980, I received a book by post from my aunt. I was still a secondary school student. My auntie, Mimose, was a Black working class Creole woman who had to migrate in France in the 1970s so as to get a better living. The only recognition for her in my Creole families at that time was for her to get married with a white Frenchman in France. In a letter that she wrote to me, she says that this book portrays her dream for a better Mauritius against its deep-rooted racial prejudices. The title of the book is À l'autre bout de moi, a French language novel, number of pages, 462, year of publication, 1979. So this book was published in France at Roman Stock Edition. The author's name is Marie Thérese Humbert, and she's a Mauritian, contemporary Mauritian woman, writer who resides in France. She settled in France in 1968 after completing her studies in comparative literature at the University of Cambridge and Sorbonne. À l'autre bout de moi is her first publication. She has been publishing several novels and short stories. Her latest publication is a novel entitled Maison et Royaume, which came out in 2017. À l'autre bout de moi can be translated literally as at the other end of myself, or metaphorically as myself from the inside out. It narrates the tragic story of the twin sisters Anne and Nadege of the Morin family in Mauritius in the 1950s. Naturally, it is a fictitious story, but the events portray the historical, social context of that time. So I will just give a resume of a plot. And that resume is illustrated as arcs and artist, in fact, my brother, to illustrate the plot by some, if you want, drawings. So I hope this will help while I'm giving you a plot. The illustrations will help to get a better understanding of this novel of 462 pages. So the Morin family is what we would say a typical Jean de couleur family. The Morin family lives in Quatre-Bornes, an urban middle-class region with its suburbs inhabited by the Indo-Mauritian laborers and the Black Creole working class. Both sisters come to grips with the social prejudices of a social group. Their mother one day haughtily warns them against the Indians. And I quote here, the mother says, "Be properly attired. Be properly attired, Nadege. Be properly attired, Anne. Come on, dress that way, you would be mistaken for little Indian girls." After Morin had said this, there was nothing else she could possibly add. While Anne follows obediently the parental advice in her upbringing, Nadege, on her part, has a different character. She gets mixed with the Indians of her locality. She shows keen interest in the popular customs and rites, while their parents are good Catholics going regularly to the Sunday Mass. However, this good-looking family has also its problems. The father works as clerk at a notary office and gets back home after very often drunk after his work. One day, his wife leaves him and takes the two daughters with her. After a couple of days, she gets back to the marital home, but then she unfortunately dies after some months. So with the death of their mother, the two adolescents, Anne and Nadege, are left on their own. Nadege falls in love with honored couple, a young Indian, Indo-Mauritian politician, we would say, prominent member of the pro-independence Labour Party, Nadege gets pregnant. What a scandal for the family. Jean de Couleur, an Indian, such a mésalliance. How come? Both sisters are sent hastily by their father to their uncle's place at Cassis, which is a suburb of Port Louis, of the city town of Port Louis. At Cassis, Nadege gets in touch with another adolescent, and she's brought to a woman who does backstreet abortion. During the abortion, Nadege bleeds profusely. She dies. The police gets involved as it is illegal, as abortion is illegal. It's almost a political scandal, as it was on the eve of the general elections where people had to vote either for or against independence in 1967. The scandal itself is an Indo-Mauritian politician having a love affair with an adolescent of a Jean de Couleur family. Dejected by the death of her twin sister and pricked by the pangs of remorse, Anne leaves the house and goes to live with Honot, and consequently ceasing her dating with Pierre Auger, a white guy. For Anne, this is her way of getting reconciled with the past and pay back her twin sister. At the end of the novel, Anne says this: "My hope, if I had children, was that they could come back, sit under the porch, and dream while contemplating Archangel Gabriel and Vishnu, would have started to smile back at each other in a heavenly glass house." Unquote. This is my translation. It is an excerpt at page 462. In fact, the Morin family is a typical family of a middle-class group called Jean de Couleur, as I said at the beginning. Within the Jean de Couleur is a group within the Creole ethnic group during, and especially in those days during the pre-independence period. The Jean de Couleur are part of the intermediate and unique categories that historically emerged from slavery and indenture. They are neither white nor black. However, the Jean de Couleur could be of light or dark complexion, but factors like class, profession, kinship determine who was and who was not a Jean de Couleur. Today, this appellation Jean de Couleur in the Creole ethnic group, I myself am a Creole, it is no longer being used by the present generation. That group itself is an aging social group. The author of the novel, Marie Thérese Humbert, she herself forms part of that generation of Jean de Couleur. In fact, this novel portrays her own milieu, the author's milieu in those days. The novel gives us insights into the making of the identities by two major groups of the population of Mauritius, namely the Creoles, a mixed ethnic group historically linked with slavery, and the Indo-Mauritians, who are descendants of indentured labor and represent the majority ethnic group. We would say, while the descendants of a enslaved, so I just get back to one slide where I give some, this might help. It gives some facts about Mauritius. So while we would say, while the history of the descent of enslaved people, the Creoles, and the descendants of indentured labor has been a shared history of continuum of domination and subjugation during colonization, the possibility of freedom, access to resources, and power sharing on the eve of independence exacerbates, unfortunately, the divisive situation. In 2007, just show you this. In 2007, the Truth and Justice Commission was set up by the state of Mauritius to investigate the consequences of slavery and indentured labor from colonial period to date. One excerpt from this report reads as follows, and gives you an idea about the current situation, about the history as well, the legacy of indentured and slavery. The history of slavery, indenture, and colonialism has been significant in the classification of individuals in Mauritius, creating enduring categories of oppressors and victims, whose connotations have endured in contemporary Mauritius. Hence, to conclude, I would say the story of Anne and Nadege reflects the construction, deconstruction, and reconstruction of identities in post-colonial Mauritius. It leads us to bring in this analysis the concept of anamnesis. Anamnesis means journey back, and the etymological distinction between the Greek words utopia, which means unreal world, versus utopia, the perfect world, which I borrow from a professor of post-colonial studies, Françoise Lyonnais. Most probably you have come across, you have gone through her readings and all that. She's Harvard professor of Romance, language, and literature. So she used this concept of anamnesis and utopia versus utopia, the unreal world versus the perfect world. So I would say the death of Nadege needs Anne to reflect on her own situation, all the social prejudices which inhibited her and destroyed herself, whilst her sister, twin sister Nadege, she was more natural. She transgressed all the social inhibitions. The rebellious nature of her sister Nadege makes Anne, at the end of the story, wish to make a journey back, but that's impossible. What is done cannot be undone. Her dream for her children to see the Catholic Archangel Gabriel and Hindu deity Vishnu embracing each other. So at the end of the novel, she says that I would like to see my children like Vishnu, which is a Hindu deity, and Archangel Gabriel getting together, embracing. This, in fact, this image at the end of the novel shows the difficulty, the struggle to overcome race, prejudice, and class divisiveness in Mauritian society. And this is why the title of my presentation is Unimagined Identities. Thank you.